Now, let's dive into today's story. The morning shift at Camp Pendleton had been routine until Mitchell Rice's phone vibrated during weapons inspection. The screen showed Ted's school number. His 14-year-old son never called during school hours. "Sergeant Rice?" The nurse's voice was tight with concern. "Your son's been admitted to Oceanside Medical. You need to come immediately." Mitchell's pulse remained steady. A decade of combat deployments had taught him panic solved nothing. He informed his CO and drove the 20 minutes to the hospital with military precision, though his mind cataloged possibilities. Sports injury, fight, accident. The truth was worse. Ted sat on the examination bed, left arm encased in fresh plaster, right eye swollen nearly shut. Purple bruises mottled his neck. Mitchell had seen enough violence to recognize what he was looking at. Adult male, significant strength, deliberate harm. "Dad," Ted's voice cracked. "I went home for lunch. Mom said I could this week since you're stateside." The front door was unlocked, and I walked in and... He stopped, struggling. Mitchell placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Take your time." Mom was in the living room with a man. They were on the couch. When I came in, he jumped up and started yelling at me. Called me a little shit for not knocking. I tried to leave, but he grabbed my arm, and Ted's breath hitched. He threw me against the wall. My head hit first, then I landed on my arm. I heard it snap. The nurse had stepped outside. Mitchell kept his expression neutral, but something cold and ancient settled in his chest. "Where's your mother?" "She just stood there. Didn't try to help." The man said if I told anyone what I saw, he'd finish what he started. "Mom drove me to school and told them I fell down the stairs at home." Mitchell processed this. Deborah had lied to school officials, coached their son to lie, protected her lover instead of their child. "Is he still at the house?" Ted nodded. "Mom texted him from the nurse's office. Said something about cleaning up before you got home. I saw the message when she wasn't looking." Mitchell called his CO, requested emergency leave. Family crisis. Approved immediately. The Marine Corps took care of its own. Then, he called an Uber for Ted to take him to Mitchell's sister's house across town, somewhere safe. The boy protested until Mitchell's tone went flat and absolute. "You're 14, your arm's broken, and you've got a concussion. You go to Aunt Rachel's. That's an order." After Ted left, Mitchell sat in the hospital parking lot. Deborah had been distant since his last deployment, but he'd attributed it to the stress of military life. 14 years of marriage, a son they'd both cherished, or so he believed. He'd given her everything: stability, devotion, a comfortable life on his sergeant's salary supplemented by deployment bonuses. The rage he felt was glacial, the kind that didn't explode but calculated. He drove home. The house sat in a quiet neighborhood near the base, a 3-bedroom ranch with a small yard. Mitchell's truck was still in the driveway from where he'd left it that morning. Deborah's sedan was parked behind it. Next to it, a silver BMW with dealer plates. Mitchell memorized the license plate before entering. The living room showed signs of hasty cleanup: cushions straightened, a wine bottle and glasses missing from the coffee table, but a faint ring of condensation still visible. The air held traces of cologne, expensive and aggressive. Deborah emerged from the bedroom, stopped when she saw him. She changed clothes, fixed her makeup, preparing a performance. "Mitchell, I wasn't expecting you until tonight. The school called about our son being hospitalized." He kept his voice even. "Broken arm, black eye, concussion." She blinked, recalibrating. He fell down. "Don't." The single word cut like a blade. "I spoke with Ted. He told me everything." Color drained from her face. "It's not what you think." "Then explain what I should think about another man assaulting my son in my house." Silence stretched. Then, "Darren didn't mean to hurt him. Ted startled us." Darren reacted badly. "Darren." Mitchell committed the name to memory. "And how long has Darren been coming to my house?" Deborah's jaw tightened. 6 months. Since your last deployment." The timeline explained the distance. The late nights she'd attributed to her book club, the sudden interest in yoga classes. "You brought him into our home while I was overseas. Around our son. You're never here, Mitchell. Always deployed, or training, or preparing for the next deployment. I got lonely. So you found comfort with a man who breaks children's bones." Her expression hardened, defensive walls rising. You don't understand what it's like, waiting, wondering if you'll come back in a box. I needed. Where is he? Gone. He left after I dropped Ted at school. Mitchell pulled out his phone. Showed her the BMW still in the driveway. Deborah's eyes widened. Last chance, Mitchell said. The truth. A door opened down the hall. The master bedroom. A man emerged, late 30s, athletic build, expensive casual wear. Handsome in a manufactured way, like someone who spent serious money on personal grooming. He assessed Mitchell with the kind of arrogance that came from never facing real consequences. You must be the husband. Darren Gates extended a hand. Look, about earlier, the kid surprised us. I overreacted, but no real harm done, right? Kids are resilient. Mitchell didn't take the hand. My son's arm is broken. Hospital bills, I get it. I'll cover whatever insurance doesn't. Darren pulled out a wallet, thumbed through hundreds. Call it $2,000 for the inconvenience? The offer revealed everything Mitchell needed to know about this man's character. Money solved problems. Consequences could be purchased away. People were transactions. Put it away. Darren's smile thinned. I'm trying to be reasonable here. You assaulted a 14-year-old child. I disciplined a kid who didn't know how to knock. Maybe if you were around more, he'd have better manners. The comment was designed to provoke. Mitchell recognized manipulation, had seen it in enemy combatants during interrogations. Darren wanted him angry, wanted him to throw a punch, create a situation where Darren became the victim. Mitchell smiled instead. What do you do, Darren? The question clearly wasn't expected. I'm in pharmaceutical sales. Why? Just curious what kind of man throws money at broken children. Darren's jaw tightened. He turned to Deborah. I'll call you later. To Mitchell. You might want to ask your wife what she really wants. Spoiler alert, it's not a soldier who's gone 10 months a year. He left. The BMW's engine purred to life, then faded down the street. Mitchell and Deborah stood in the living room that had hosted another man's violence against their son. I want a divorce, Mitchell said. Deborah's expression cycled through surprise, relief, then calculation. Fine. But I want the house, and I want primary custody of Ted. The house where your boyfriend broke our son's arm. Darren made a mistake. You stood there and watched. I was in shock. Mitchell studied his wife. 14 years, and he'd never really known her. Ted's staying with me. No court will give you custody when you're deployed half the year. No court will give you custody after I submit Ted's medical records and testimony about what happened here today. Deborah's eyes went cold. You destroy your own son's mother in court? You destroyed yourself when you chose your lover over your child's safety. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You think you're the hero here? You're never home, Mitchell. Ted barely knows you. I've been the one raising him, taking him to school, helping with homework, being there every single day. You show up between deployments and play dad for a few weeks, then leave again. Darren's been more of a father figure these past 6 months than you've been in years. The words were designed to wound. They missed their mark because Mitchell knew his son. They'd video called twice weekly during deployment. Ted had written letters, sent photos of school events. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real. Pack your things, Mitchell said. You have until tomorrow to find somewhere else to stay. This is my house too, and our son's blood is on that wall. Mitchell pointed to a small dark stain near the baseboard, missed in the cleanup. You have until tomorrow. Deborah's face twisted. You'll regret this. Darren has lawyers. Good ones. And money. More than you'll ever see on a sergeant's salary. Then I guess we'll see how well money holds up against the truth. She grabbed her purse, her phone. I'm going to Darren's. Don't call me. Wouldn't dream of it. After she left, Mitchell walked through the house, cataloging evidence. Photos of Ted through the years. Deborah had removed most of the ones that included Mitchell. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table, still logged into email. He didn't touch it. Illegally obtained evidence wouldn't help in court. But there were other ways to gather information. He called an old friend from his unit, now working private investigation in San Diego. Ramon specialized in background checks, surveillance, finding the truths people tried to hide. I need everything you can find on a Darren Gates, Mitchell said. Pharmaceutical sales. Drives a BMW with dealer plates. Dating my wife. Assaulted my son. Jesus, Mitch. You okay? I will be. Give me 24 hours. Mitchell spent the evening at Rachel's house. Ted sat quietly, his aunt fussing over him while Mitchell's mind worked through tactical planning. His sister was 5 years younger, a high school teacher with 2 kids of her own. She'd never liked Deborah, had warned Mitchell years ago that something felt off about his wife's commitment. She always seemed like she was waiting for something better, Rachel said quietly while Ted played video games with her sons in the other room. I'm sorry I was right. Ted's what matters now. What are you going to do? Mitchell considered his options. Legal route, divorce, custody battle, potentially criminal charges against Darren for assaulting a minor. Messy, expensive, uncertain outcomes. Deborah had played the devoted mother for years. A sympathetic judge might overlook today's failure. Or the other route, the one that utilized different skills. I'm going to make sure my son is safe, and the people who hurt him understand consequences. Rachel knew her brother well enough not to ask for details. If you need anything, I know. Thank you. That night, Ted fell asleep in Rachel's guest room, exhausted from pain medication. Mitchell sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee, thinking about Darren Gates. Pharmaceutical sales meant client lists, expense reports, travel schedules. It meant a paper trail. And if Darren was the type to throw money at problems, to see people as transactions, then he likely had other secrets, other problems, other people he'd hurt. Mitchell's phone buzzed. Ramon, found something interesting. Can you meet tomorrow? 0900? I'll be there. Mitchell drove back to the empty house, walked through rooms that no longer felt like home. In the master bedroom, Deborah had cleared out her side of the closet. Efficient, like she'd been preparing for this. On her nightstand, she'd left a photo face down. Mitchell picked it up. Their wedding day, 14 years ago. They both looked happy, young, full of plans. He wondered when exactly things had soured. After Ted's birth? After the first deployment? Or had Deborah always been someone who needed more than he could give? It didn't matter now. What mattered was that a man had broken his son's arm and walked away smiling, confident that money would erase the crime, that Deborah had chosen protecting her lover over protecting their child. Some people are about to learn why you don't touch a soldier's kid. Mitchell set the photo in the trash and began planning. Ramon's office occupied a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. Inside, the detective had transformed the space into something efficient. Filing cabinets, computer equipment, a wall of monitors showing various surveillance feeds. Darren Gates, Ramon said, pulling up a file. 38, divorced twice, no kids. Works for Helix Pharmaceuticals, one of the mid-tier companies pushing pain medication to doctors. Makes about $200,000 a year, plus bonuses. Lives in a condo downtown, drives the BMW. Spends money like he's making twice what he does. Debt? Surprisingly, no. But here's where it gets interesting. Ramon brought up bank records obtained through methods Mitchell didn't ask about. Monthly deposits that don't match his salary structure. We're talking an extra $20,000 to $30,000 a month, cash deposits, always just under the reporting threshold. Money laundering, or kickbacks. Either way, illegal. His job involves visiting doctors' offices, selling Helix's pain medication line. But according to his expense reports versus his actual locations, Ramon showed 2 different maps. He's visiting a lot of places that aren't medical facilities. Strip clubs, high-end bars, private residences. He's paying doctors under the table to prescribe Helix medications. That'd be my guess. Illegal as hell, but hard to prove without inside testimony. The pharmaceutical industry's got teams of lawyers specifically to muddy these waters. Mitchell studied the patterns. What else? 2 restraining orders from ex-wives, both dropped after settlements. One complaint from a former girlfriend alleging assault, withdrawn before charges were filed. Another woman filed a police report 3 years ago claiming Darren drugged her drink at a bar, but the talk screen came back inconclusive and the case went nowhere. A pattern. Darren Gates liked hurting people, then buying his way out of consequences. Current girlfriend, besides my wife? Ramon pulled up social media. He's seeing at least 2 other women, I can confirm. Your wife, a woman named Jennifer Stevenson who works at a medical clinic, and possibly a third. He's good at compartmentalizing. So, Deborah wasn't even exclusive. She'd blown up their family for a man who was hedging his bets. I need addresses, schedules, everything you can find on his business practices. Also, Contact information for the doctors he's paying off. Ramon's expression went carefully neutral. Mitch, whatever you're planning, I'm protecting my son. That's all. The legal route might be slower, but it's safer. The legal route let him walk away after breaking a 14-year-old's arm. I'm done waiting for systems that protect men like Darren Gates. Ramon was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I'll have everything to you by tonight. But Mitch, be careful. Gates has money and connections. If you're going to move against him, make it count. I will. Mitchell spent the day gathering his own intelligence. He drove past Darren's condo building luxury high-rise, with security, valet parking, the kind of place that screamed new money desperate to look like old money. He mapped the pharmaceutical company's office, noted security cameras, logged shift changes. He visited Ted at Rachel's, found his son doing homework one-handed while his cousins tried to cheer him up. The bruises looked worse now, dark purple spreading across pale skin. How are you holding up? Mitchell asked. Arm hurts, but I'm okay. Ted hesitated. Is Mom coming back? Not to our house. She's staying somewhere else. With Darren? Mitchell nodded. Ted's jaw tightened, making him look older than 14. Good. I don't want to see her. She just stood there. Dad, when he grabbed me, when he threw me, she didn't even try to stop him. I know. Are you going to do something about it? The question was direct, serious. Ted knew his father, knew what a decade of military service meant. I'm going to make sure he can't hurt you again. Or anyone else. What does that mean? Mitchell chose his words carefully. It means sometimes the world needs people who understand that actions have consequences. That you can't just buy your way out of hurting others. Ted studied him. You're going to hurt him back. I'm going to make sure justice happens. One way or another. Good. There was no hesitation in Ted's voice. No moral conflict. His son had learned a hard lesson about the world's cruelty. Mitchell hated that, but he couldn't change it. He could only respond to it. That evening, Ramon delivered a thick file. Darren's complete life, mapped and documented. Schedules, contacts, financial records, everything. Mitchell spent hours reading, learning, planning. Darren Gates wasn't just corrupt, he was sloppy about it. Arrogant. He left trails because he'd never faced real consequences. The restraining orders, the assault allegations, the suspicious financial activity, all of it had been handled with money and lawyers. Never with actual accountability. The plan began forming. Not violence that was too simple, too quick. Darren needed to lose everything the same way he'd casually broken a child's arm. Systematically, painfully, completely. And it started with the doctors. Dr. Norman Cameron ran a pain management clinic in El Cajon, one of Darren's regular stops. According to Ramon's files, Cameron received monthly cash payments in exchange for prescribing Helix's most expensive pain medications, regardless of whether patients actually needed them. The arrangement had been running for 3 years. Mitchell watched the clinic for 2 days, learning patterns. Cameron arrived at 8, left at 6, spent his lunch hour at a nearby steakhouse where he met with Darren twice a week. The exchanges were subtle envelope passed under the table, pleasantries exchanged, both men leaving separately. On the 3rd day, Mitchell approached Cameron in the steakhouse parking lot. Dr. Cameron, I'm Mitchell Rice. I'd like to talk about your arrangement with Darren Gates. Cameron's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Mitchell pulled out a folder, showed him photos of the cash exchanges, copies of prescriptions that matched suspiciously with Cameron's meetings with Darren. You can talk to me, or you can talk to the DEA. Your choice. Who the hell are you? A father whose son was assaulted by Darren Gates. I'm giving you an opportunity to cooperate before this becomes a federal investigation. Cameron's hands shook. He said it was just pharmaceutical marketing. Standard industry practice. Paying doctors under the table to overprescribe addictive pain medication is not standard practice. It's illegal. How many patients have you hooked on opioids for kickback money? Guilt flickered across Cameron's face. I needed the income, my practice was struggling. So you helped create addicts. How many? I know maybe 30, 40 patients over the years. But I didn't force them. You're a doctor. They trusted you. Mitchell let disgust color his tone. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to write a detailed statement about your arrangement with Darren Gates. Names, dates, amounts, everything. Then you're going to contact the DEA and cooperate fully with their investigation. I'll lose my license. Go to prison. Probably. But if you cooperate now, you might get a reduced sentence. If I have to drag this out, I'll make sure every news outlet in San Diego knows exactly what you did. Your choice. Cameron crumbled. Within an hour, Mitchell had a signed statement and contact information for 3 other doctors in Darren's network. Each one received the same visit, the same choice. 2 cooperated immediately. The third tried to call Darren to warn him. Mitchell had been waiting for that. He intercepted the call, used signal jamming equipment he'd borrowed from base technically against regulations, but Mitchell had stopped caring about technicalities. The doctor panicked when Darren didn't answer, then agreed to cooperate when Mitchell showed him photos of his own teenage daughter and suggested she be interested to know how Daddy made his money. The threat was empty. Mitchell would never actually involve a child, but the doctor didn't know that. Within a week, Mitchell had statements from 8 doctors, all detailing their illegal arrangements with Darren Gates. He compiled everything into a comprehensive file and delivered it anonymously to the DEA's San Diego office, with a note, Helix Pharmaceuticals kickback scheme. Multiple doctors compromised. Full documentation attached. The DEA moved fast. Within days, federal agents raided Cameron's clinic and 6 other medical offices. The investigation expanded to Helix Pharmaceuticals. News broke across local media. Massive opioid prescription kickback scheme uncovered. Multiple doctors implicated. Federal investigation ongoing. Darren Gates' name appeared in every article. Mitchell watched from a distance as Darren's world began collapsing. The pharmaceutical company placed him on immediate suspension pending investigation. His condo building security footage from the lobby obtained by Ramon through creative means showed federal agents arriving to question him. His BMW disappeared from the parking garage, likely seized as evidence. But Mitchell wasn't finished. Jennifer Stevenson, the medical clinic worker Darren had been seeing, worked at a family practice in La Jolla. She was 26, pretty, naive. Ramon's background check showed she'd moved to San Diego 3 months ago, fresh out of a bad relationship in Arizona. Perfect target for someone like Darren. Mitchell approached her after work, caught her in the parking lot. Jennifer? My name's Mitchell Rice. I need to talk to you about Darren Gates. She tensed immediately. I don't know you. Darren's my wife's boyfriend. Was my wife's boyfriend. I'm guessing he didn't mention he was seeing multiple women? Her face confirmed the suspicion. He said he'd ended things with someone. That it was complicated but over. It wasn't over. And there were at least 2 other women. You've seen the news about the pharmaceutical investigation? That's not Darren said. That was a misunderstanding. A former colleague setting him up. Mitchell showed her the doctor's statements, showed her the evidence of Darren's systematic corruption. This is who you're dating. A man who buys doctors to overprescribe addictive medication. A man who broke my 14-year-old son's arm and tried to pay his way out of it. Jennifer's hands went to her mouth. He hurt a child? Threw him against a wall hard enough to fracture his arm and give him a concussion. My son's crime was walking in on Darren with my wife. Oh God. Tears formed. He told me he loved me, that we had a future. He tells everyone what they want to hear. Then he takes what he wants and moves on. She was crying now, mascara running. What do you want from me? The truth. Has he ever hurt you? She hesitated, then nodded. Once. We were arguing about him not answering his phone. He grabbed my wrist hard enough to bruise. Then he apologized, bought me flowers, said work was stressing him out. Classic abuser pattern. Escalate, then love bomb. Would you be willing to file a police report? What good would that do? Combined with my son's hospital records and the statements from his ex-wives, it builds a pattern. Makes it harder for his lawyers to dismiss individual incidents. Jennifer wiped her eyes. He'll retaliate. His lawyers won't be able to help him much longer. The federal investigation is just the beginning. She studied Mitchell, seeing something in him that made her decision. Okay. I'll file a report. Thank you. Mitchell drove her to the police station, waited while she gave her statement. The officer taking the report was skeptical until Mitchell provided Ted's medical records and the documentation of Darren's previous assault allegations. The pattern became undeniable, more pieces falling into place. Darren's world was burning, but he didn't understand yet who had lit the match. He'd assumed the DEA investigation was random, Bad luck that Jennifer filing a report was just an angry ex-girlfriend. He didn't know Mitchell was orchestrating his destruction. Not yet. Deborah called Mitchell's phone repeatedly over the next 2 weeks. He ignored every call. She showed up at Rachel's house once, demanding to see Ted. Rachel turned her away, threatened to call the police. Ted didn't want to see his mother. That statement, delivered through a child advocate, hurt Deborah more than any of Mitchell's actions could. The divorce papers arrived. Deborah was demanding the house, primary custody, alimony. Her lawyer was expensive, aggressive. Mitchell's military legal assistance attorney was competent but outmatched. Until Mitchell submitted Ted's testimony, medical records, and evidence that Deborah had coached their son to lie to school officials about his injuries. The judge ordered a child welfare investigation. Deborah's lawyer tried to claim Mitchell was fabricating evidence, that he was using his military training to intimidate witnesses. Then Jennifer Stephenson's police report became public record. Then the DEA investigation expanded, naming Darren as a primary target. The judge wasn't stupid. Pattern recognition worked in courtroom too. Temporary custody went to Mitchell. Deborah received supervised visitation, which Ted refused. The house remained in legal limbo. But Mitchell didn't care. He and Ted had moved into base housing. A smaller place but safe, clean, theirs. Dad, Ted asked one evening while they ate dinner. What's happening to Darren? Mitchell had been waiting for this question. The federal investigation is ongoing. He'll likely face charges for the pharmaceutical kickback scheme. The assault allegations are being reviewed. His company fired him. Good. Ted pushed food around his plate. Is that enough? For what he did? Honest question. Deserved an honest answer. No, Mitchell said. It's not enough. But it's what the law allows. What about what you allow? Mitchell met his son's eyes. At 14, Ted was old enough to understand some truths about the world. The law handles what it can. I handle the rest. Like what? Like making sure Darren Gates understands that consequences are real. That some people can't be bought or intimidated. Ted was quiet for a moment. He scared me, Dad. When he threw me, there was this look in his eyes like I was nothing. Like breaking my arm didn't matter. You matter. You matter more than anything. I know. That's why I'm not scared anymore. Because I know you'll make it right. The faith in Ted's voice was humbling and terrible. His son believed in him absolutely. Mitchell had to deliver on that faith. Darren's federal arraignment was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Mitchell attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom, watching. Darren wore an expensive suit, his lawyer whispering urgently. The charges were read: conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, healthcare fraud, commercial bribery. Each carried significant prison time. Darren pled not guilty. Bail was set at $500,000. He made it, walked out of the courthouse with his lawyer, spotted Mitchell waiting by the steps. For the first time, recognition dawned. You, Darren said, you did this. I provided evidence of your crimes to the appropriate authorities. What they did with it was their choice. Darren's lawyer touched his arm. Don't engage. Let's go. But Darren shook him off, stepped closer to Mitchell. You think you're clever? You think this ruins me? I have resources you can't imagine. I'll beat these charges. And then I'll come after everything you have. Your custody, your career, your life. Mitchell smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You broke my son's arm. You threw a 14-year-old child against a wall and walked away like it didn't matter. Then you tried to pay your way out of it. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? I'll destroy you. You can try. Darren's face flushed red. His hand moved muscle memory, the beginning of a shove or a grab. Mitchell was ready, had been ready, wanted Darren to make this mistake. But the lawyer grabbed Darren's arm, physically pulled him back. We're leaving, the lawyer said firmly. Now. They walked away. Mitchell knew Darren would make another mistake. Men like him always did. They couldn't help themselves. The question was what form it would take. The answer came 3 days later. Mitchell's car wouldn't start. Routine inspection revealed sugar in the gas tank, brake lines partially cut. Obvious sabotage, meant to look like an accident but sloppy enough to be discovered. Darren's signature, aggressive, arrogant, assuming he was untouchable. Ramon's surveillance cameras installed as a precaution around Mitchell's base housing caught Darren on video, 2 a.m., crouched by Mitchell's vehicle. Clear footage, no question of identity. Mitchell filed a police report, added charges, attempted vehicular homicide, destruction of property. Darren's bail was revoked. He was remanded to federal custody pending trial. But Mitchell still wasn't finished. Helix Pharmaceuticals, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal, cooperated fully with federal investigators. They provided internal communication showing Darren had falsified sales reports, diverted company funds, and operated without oversight. Additional charges followed: embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering. The case was airtight. Darren's lawyers, despite their expertise, couldn't overcome the evidence. They pushed for a plea deal. Darren refused. Convinced of his own invincibility, he demanded a trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Mitchell attended every day, sitting in the gallery, a silent reminder. Prosecutors presented the doctor's testimonies, the financial records, the evidence of systematic corruption. Jennifer testified about the abuse. Ted testified about the assault, his arm still in a cast, his voice steady as he described Darren's violence. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for 30 days later. Darren faced 25 years minimum. Deborah's world collapsed separately, but no less completely. The child welfare investigation determined she had endangered Ted by allowing Darren access to their home after the assault. Her parental rights were suspended pending psychological evaluation. The divorce settlement gave Mitchell full custody. The house, everything. She tried to see Ted one last time. Showed up at the base housing with tears and apologies. Ted stood in the doorway, looked at his mother, and said 5 words. "You chose him over me." Then, he closed the door. Deborah left California shortly after. Mitchell heard she moved back to her hometown in Ohio, was working retail, living with her parents. He felt no satisfaction in her destruction. She'd done it to herself. Mitchell returned to active duty 6 months later, but arranged for a stateside posting. He wouldn't miss any more of Ted's teenage years. They'd been through hell together. They'd rebuild together. Ted's arm healed. The physical scars faded. The emotional ones would take longer, but he was resilient. More importantly, he knew his father would always protect him. That knowledge was worth everything. The day of Darren's sentencing, Mitchell and Ted attended together. The courtroom was packed victims of the opioid kickback scheme, former patients whose addictions had been engineered for profit, families destroyed by prescribed poison. Darren looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit. Prison had stripped away the expensive veneer. The judge read the charges, the convictions, the impact statements. 28 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility for 20. Darren would be 66 when released. His life, his freedom, his future gone. As the marshals led him away, Darren looked at Mitchell. No anger now, just hollow recognition. He'd finally understood. Actions had consequences. Some people couldn't be bought. Some pain couldn't be erased with money. Outside the courthouse, Ted asked, "Is it over?" Mitchell put an arm around his son's shoulders. "Yeah, it's over." "Did we win?" Mitchell thought about that. Ted was safe. Darren was in prison. Deborah had lost everything she'd sacrificed her family for. Justice, imperfect but real, had been served. "We survived," Mitchell said. "Sometimes that's the same thing as winning." They walked to the car together, father and son, battle-tested and stronger for it. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they'd face it together. Some people learn too late that a soldier protects his own by any means necessary. Darren Gates had learned that lesson in the hardest way possible. And Mitchell Rice had proven that some battles are won not with weapons, but with patience, intelligence, and the absolute refusal to let evil go unpunished. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.